Okay, so it's once again very lovely to have the opportunity to be with practicing Buddhists and have a topic that hopefully is very relevant to each one of us and are quite familiar, that is about our spiritual journey, our spiritual path. So I'm mainly going to focus on the Noble Eightfold Path, but probably going to talk about it in a way that is very practical and here and now. How can we apply it? Because this is something that we all know quite well. But it's important to bring it to the forefront of our mind from time to time and see different aspects. So it's a good reminder for us. But since it is almost towards the end of the 3-month-long rains retreat, and also have been told that most of the talks during this time are focused on nothing but Nibbana. And there is only one road, one way to get to Nibbana, and that is the practice of the Noble Eightfold Path. That is what the Buddha said. So Noble Eightfold Path is to be practiced, and that is what leads us to Nibbana. So I would like to start by just reciting in Pali what the Buddha said about Nibbana. Etang santang, etang panitang, yadidang, sabba sankara samato, sabbu padipatinisago, tanhakayo, virago, nirodo, nibbana. And in English, what it means is, this is sublime, this is peaceful, and that is the stilling of all formations, that is the sankharas, the quenching of the tanha, that is the craving, giving up or abandoning or relinquishing of all assets, acquisitions, attachments, and belongings, fading away, ceasing, and extinguishment. Quite beautiful, especially if you are familiar with the Pali terms. It's really, even the hearing of it itself stills our mind, inclines our mind to this very peaceful, sublime, beautiful state. That, and it is hard probably for us to gauge what exactly that is, but we can understand what our mind is like when it starts to cool down. Right? So another way to understand, because for many people, it could be sometimes difficult to understand what is Nibbana. There are lots of misunderstandings and misconceptions about this term as well. But for us, it's actually quite not that difficult to understand if we use the Sinhala word Nirvana. Right? So Nibbana in Sinhala is Nirvana. Nirvana, right? If you say is extinguish or put it out, put out the light, put out the fire, switch off is what it means. So relinquishment, extinguishment is the meaning of Nibbana. Extinguishing what? Extinguishing the fires. So when you understand enlightenment in this way, it is easy to relate to our life and to relate to the goal that we are heading. So the Buddha says that we are on fire. So this is this beautiful sermon, the fourth, sometimes it's called the third or the fourth sermon given by the Buddha, called Aditta Pariyaya Sutta. All on fire. It's called the fire sermon. The Buddha says, Sabbam bhikkhave aditta. And the Buddha says, everything is on fire. And what are all this everything? The Buddha says, the I is on fire. The forms are on fire. Eye contact is on fire. Eye consciousness is on fire. And any feeling that arises based on eye contact is on fire, right? So, and then it goes to all the 6 senses: eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind. right? So all these things, that is what the sabbam bhikkhave aditang means. So we can relate to this, right? And what kind of fire there are? We are on fire, fire of passion, fire of hatred, and fire of delusion. Now, how can we understand that in a very practical way? Now, based on something that we see, just a sight, sometimes very strong desire can come up in our mind. When there is lust, when there is strong passion, do you recall how it felt in your mind? It feels like you're burning. You know, when the strong desires come, even things like going on shopping and seeing something that is beautiful that you want to buy. And if you couldn't buy it, the feeling is like burning. Next time, watch your mind, how the mind burns with lust, with passion, with desire. The next one, it's easy. When we have irritation, anger, rage, it really feels like burning, right? It's not difficult to understand. This really is a state of burning. But how about delusion? How about moha? So this is really nice in a way that you can understand this by our sense of self, because the biggest delusion is this idea of me, mine, right? And can you remember the times when somebody challenges you? You say, I know. Who are you to tell me? Can you remember how that felt? Burning, right? So this is just for you to, get an understanding that we are constantly burning, yeah, based on things that we see day to day by our by our eyes, and things that we hear, right? We are sometimes minding our business and, started a very peaceful day. And you see something or you hear something, and just based on that, we are on fire. I'm sure this is not too hard to recollect. This happens quite often. So this is the fires that the Buddha is talking about. And then you might recall also, like when we were younger or before we started our spiritual journey, things used to irritate us, or these fires would light up quite easily in our mind and quite frequently. But after a while, as we have been practicing this path, you may also notice that things that used to light fires don't light fires so easily, right? Sometimes this is true. And you also see other people, and we say that somebody who's chilled, right? Somebody who's cooled down. And we see such people, and they are not so easily agitated, irritated, or aroused by external stimuli or things that happen, right? So, and we see it in ourselves, how we have also started to cool down a little bit, right? Not agitating. So this way you can really relate to and extrapolate it to understand what Nibbana would be like, right? Nibbana would be the total cooling down. Siti bhutos minti nibbuto. The most of the monks and nuns, when they become enlightened, when they become another arahant, this is a very common utterance. I am cooled as I am. That's the meaning of that Pali, right? Cooling down. This is the idea, extinguishing of those fires. Even that idea, isn't it nice that, when the world presents us with things, we are constantly receiving the world, right? We receive the world every wakeful moment through our eye, through our ear, through our nose, tongue, body, and also through our mind. So as we receive the world, if we can remain cool, calm, and peaceful, wouldn't that be a beautiful way, a beautiful thing to aspire to, incline our mind to? Isn't it? As practitioners, this is very inviting. So this is the idea, and that all the way to Nibbana. So this is the path. So it is not so hard to understand what Nibbana is like and what do we have to do. It's not complicated, right? So I want to, at this point, tell you a story. And based on that story, maybe elaborate and explain the application in a very practical way of this Noble Eightfold Path into our lives. And how can we start this process of cooling down, a process towards Nibbana. So when I first arrived, so I'm originally from Dhammasaranan's monastery in Western Australia, and I came to Santi Forest Monastery in New South Wales about 2.5 years ago. So when we first arrived at this very beautiful monastery up in the Southern Highlands, I wanted to familiarize myself with the new surroundings. It's quite a wild forest here. We are next to a very large, few thousand hectare national park called Morton National Park. And we have beautiful caves, waterfalls, cliffs, and gorges. It's quite a stunning, but also quite a wild kind of forest. And we have all kinds of wild animals here. Most of Australian animals are very cute, like wallabies and wombats, but we also do have snakes and spiders and other things. So I wanted to get familiar with the forest here. So one beautiful sunny morning, I decided to go for a walk. And I was here with another nun, and she too has decided to go for a walk by herself. So we were walking separately in the forest, and when we are in a new environment, usually we are quite alert, isn't it? We don't know the way, we don't know what we are going to meet. So of course, I was walking quite mindfully, quite alert, and looking around and walking. Halfway through my walk, I met my friend, the other nun. So what usually happens when two people get together? We started talking. So of course, the mindfulness starts to drop a bit. But I had very good fortune. And I'll tell you why. Because, luckily my friend, the other nun, was walking a little ahead of me. I was walking a little behind. And suddenly, she put her hand out to stop me. And just to see, like about a feet in front of us was this very venomous big snake, a black snake called red belly black snake. If you look up, you will know it's one of the most venomous snakes around this part of the world, together with the brown snake. So it's quite and it was quite a large snake, and it has already lifted itself up, ready to strike. And it can strike you quite high, giving us not much time to live. And we were about half an hour's walk from the main area of the monastery. So we were in the forest, far away. So if we got, bitten by the snake, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you. So it's quite dangerous, right? So anyway, what happened next is the interesting part. Now, what would be your reaction if you were me, just about a foot in front of a snake who's ready to strike you? Since it's Zoom and people are muted, it's hard to engage, but I will just tell you most of the reactions of many people. Some people would scream. Some people would want to run away. Somebody might get really stunned and just stay quiet. And there are people who would want to even try and kill the snake because it's dangerous, it's scary. So there are so many different ways that each one of us would react. Right? And these are all because we feel scared, we have fear, we know our life is threatened. And that is why, in order to protect ourselves, we try to do these kinds of stuff. So what I felt was, because I too got quite scared, I felt like running away. That's what I wanted to do. But the other nun had a totally different plan. This is why I am telling this story. So what she did, I couldn't believe. She actually held my hand quite strongly. So because she's holding me, I can't run. So I was thinking, what are you doing? Let's run. But I didn't say it. This is what I had in my mind. But she was very peaceful. She was really calm. Because she's peaceful, because she's calm, and I trust her, I also became calm. So instead of running, I thought, well, I'll go with her plan. Anyway, I know the snake can run much faster than me. And even if I try to run, it's hard to escape. So anyway, so we became very still for a little bit. And then she decided to slowly take a few steps back. So we had a bit of a gap between the snake and us. After that is the interesting part. Then, and she's also a very sweet and very kind nun. So with a very sweet voice, she spoke to the snake and said, "Oh, we are so sorry. We didn't know you were here. We were just going for a walk, but we don't have to go this direction. So please enjoy your sunbathing and have a really nice day." And, in a really kind, beautiful, loving, respectful way, she spoke to this snake. And if you know about snakes, you know snakes are deaf. So they can't hear. Not only that, even if he heard, it don't understand English, right? But did the snake understand what we say? If you had any pets, you would know. Animals, also just like little children, they don't need to understand our words. They can feel our mind. They know what we are saying by just connecting to our stream of consciousness, like our mind, that sixth sense, give them a feeling. And this is true for us as well, right? Sometimes by just body language, we feel whether somebody's angry or somebody's fearful or whether somebody's respectful, somebody's kind, right? We too feel that. So especially the animals actually feel this. So I'm sure the snake definitely felt the respect, the kind, the affection, the care, that this nun was giving. And also there was no fear, that they were not frightened, not angry, right? Didn't say, "You stupid snake, what are you doing here? Get out of my way." That wasn't her reaction, right? And so it's kind of very interesting that, and the snake, I can still recall seeing this, marble-like dark eyes looking at us and waiting peacefully, because we responded in a very kind, peaceful, respectful way. It too waited there. Right after a little while, we went back. And if we did wanted to cross that way, all we had to do, I'm pretty sure, is to just say, like, we would like to cross and stay there. I'm sure it would have slithered away into the forest and allowed us to move. So this is just an incident and a very strange kind of reaction, right? You never hear about people responding in the way this nun responded, right? Most of us would have responded by fear, anger, worry, screaming, running. Not a way of kindness, care, love, affection, respect, right? But we forget that we have this choice every time when we meet a black snake. But it's not just the black snakes, as in the animal type of black snakes. Now think about the black snakes you meet on a daily basis in your life. Do you meet black snakes? You do. Do you meet people and situations that trigger fear in you, that trigger anger in you, that trigger worry, anxiety, panic in you, or even strong lust and desires in you? So these are our black snakes, right? These are like black snakes. We can think about it. And how do we react to these? Habitually, our reactions are either we try to kill the situation with words, right? Not really kill the person, but we kill the person or the situation with words. We try to overpower it. If we can't do that, we try to run away from it, right? We scream, yell, we do all kinds of these things, very similar kind of responses to seeing a real black snake. If you reflect, this is, what happens sometimes at work, sometimes at home, when we receive our experiences, when the world is being presented to us, every wakeful moment, right? Not all the time in a negative way, but often with difficult situations, especially, we respond in ways that are not so skillful, right? Not so skillful. Also, we forget that we do have a choice, right? We do have a choice every time, every situation. We have a choice, but by habit, most of us, I'm not saying all of us, there are people who respond differently, but we forget that we have a choice, because this is what is conditioned to us by what we see, what we hear, what other people do. So we respond in similar manners, right? But the thing is, it's so important to remember that we have a choice. And especially when we respond with these kind of negative ways, it's counterproductive, right? We don't really achieve anything that is very useful. Not only that, we also accumulate bad karma, because it's unskillful kind of actions by body, speech, and mind, often when it is a difficult situation. But every situation, we do have a choice to deal with it with kindness, with respect, right? With care, even with affection, with wisdom, with wholesome qualities. It is possible, but this is not common. So that's the whole point why I said the story, because it's a thing that you would remember, the black snake story, and that kind of very strange way this nun behaved, talking to the snake. If you remember this, when you meet your black snakes in life, at your work or at home or at your shopping center, wherever, or on the road, like while driving, then you can slowly start to see that you have a choice and how can you better apply yourself. Because this is really this place that we actually apply Noble Eightfold Path day to day in every wakeful moment. It's not something that is a part and that you practice sometimes at times when you're on retreat or when you're doing your Dhamma activities only. No, Noble Eightfold Path is something to be applied every time that we react. So I like to see this process as, experience. Every time we receive an experience of sight, an experience of sound, smell, taste, or feeling, how do we receive it? Do we receive it with fear? Do we receive it with pride? Do we receive it with anger? Do we receive it with anxiety and worry? Or do you receive it peacefully, with contentment, with kindness, with care, with a sense of acceptance? And the next stage is, how do you hold it? How do you hold this situation? Because, the experience lasts for a certain period of time. somebody is talking to us and saying all of these things, and we have to receive it, or we are in front of something that we have to see. Whatever it is, how do you hold it while you are in that experience? And most importantly, how do you respond? What is your reaction? Do you respond with anger, with irritation, with worry, with fear, with a big ego? Or do you respond like the nun did, with kindness, with respect, with care, with affection, with wisdom? Right? So you can see now, most of our black snakes in our lives are repeated events. It's the same kind of person doing the same kind of thing, or the same kind of situation triggering similar negative states and similar reactions and responses from us. So it's very easy. You can just one day, when you have a bit of time, peaceful, look back, do paccavekkhana, reflect back into your life and identify some of your black snakes and see what was your normal habitual response. And also even see, why did you respond? You will see how you got conditioned to respond in that way. Maybe your mom responded like that, or your friends did like that. You will see, you heard that's the way to do it. You learned or read somewhere. Whatever it is, you will see it's conditioned to you. Then you can see, how can I recondition this? How can I in future respond to this in a more skillful way? So you can prepare, okay, this person saying this thing, is there another way, that much more skillful way that I can deal with this? So this is really important, because this is where we go wrong, right? And now how do we start to see the application of the Noble Eightfold Path? So I will use the same black snake story that I just relayed to you to explain. For example, because the nun had right view, right? Right view of at least understanding and remembering causes and effects, karma and vipaka, of our intentional actions. So of course, if we did something unskillful, we have to reap bad consequences, right? If you do something skillful, then that is good. But do we remember this on our day-to-day activities? If we did, would we speak in the unskillful ways that we sometimes do, right? We sometimes speak in ways that we feel ashamed later on, but it's almost as if our mouth spoke before us, and we've said things that we regret later. We do things that are unskillful, isn't it? Because at those times, we don't remember the karmic consequences of our intentional actions by body, speech, and mind. That is, at that time, right view isn't around. We're not looking at our experience through right view. Right view is a big topic. Right view is to develop in a big way. But this is just an example of even remembering karmic consequences and rebirth that we will have. We have no escape of our intentional actions, even how small they are. Yet, when people disrespect us, when people talk to us badly, we wonder why they do to me. But we have also done these things to others. So this is, we forget, right? So we forget even that very simple aspect of right view. But there is also more to that. So some incidences which trigger fear in us could be, because things have changed, but we forget, that things are being out of our control, non-self, and the inherent nature of things that they are unsatisfactory. This is just another aspect of right view. So if you look at the world, when the world is being presented to you, if you look through glasses of right view, that is the starting point to make a change, remembering. So this is just an example, but you can apply and expand it to your life. So in this occasion, at least we can see just remembering the karmic consequences. You decide to take a wholesome course instead of an unwholesome one. Next one is right intention. So did she have intentions of kindness and non-cruelty? Because we didn't try to harm the snake, right? We didn't get angry at it. Instead, it was kindness and non-cruelty, gentleness, the way the situation was approached. So when you receive your black snakes, when you come across your black snakes, remember, this is Ajahn Brahm's famous 3 ways of explaining the right intention. Make peace, be kind, be gentle. That's the kind of attitude to be developed. So make peace, or you can also use the idea of acceptance, accepting the situation through understanding the consequences or the reasons, the causality. So whatever it is, when we have that right intention, that's the next step that is there in how to receive it, how to hold it, and especially how to respond to it. Intention is really important. Then, were the words spoken by her right speech? Absolutely, isn't it? The words that goes to the heart. If I was that snake, I would have been completely flattered because it was really kind, really sweet, also respectful, right? Came from a good place. So when you react, when you respond with words, what are the words like? Are they harsh? Are you being truthful? Are they divisive? See, how is your speech? How can you use right speech, good speech instead in that occasion? How was your action? At least with the snake, we didn't try to kill it. So not killing, right? So also apply to your own individual situation, the action by body. Of course, in this occasion, right livelihood doesn't come into place. That's something external, whatever job that you do. But in order to do this, you do need mindfulness. And I wouldn't call this mindfulness Samma Sati, because Samma Sati is a very specific kind of mindfulness. But what kind of mindfulness that is necessary in this day-to-day application of Noble Eightfold Path is Sati Sampajanya, mindfulness and clear comprehension. So if you didn't have mindfulness, none of this would happen, right? You are not able to apply the Noble Eightfold Path. And that is precisely why we lose it, right? It is because we are not mindful about our black snakes. We just respond habitually, automatically, and most of the time in unskillful ways. But if you have mindfulness, you see, because we have all of these latent tendencies of greed, hatred, and delusion within us if we are not enlightened, right? So they are at a sleep state to begin with, if we had a normal day. But when we receive the world, then these anusayas, what we call as anusaya, or the latent tendencies, wake up. It's called pariyuttana. So when they wake up, if you have sharp mindfulness, you feel, oh, I can feel anger coming up. I can feel worry coming up. I can feel strong desires coming up or sadness coming up. Sometimes our mindfulness isn't strong enough. But then it goes to vitikkama stage. That is, it comes into a little bit more active state in your mind. You can actively feel thoughts forming up in a certain way, right? And then you can see, I'm getting angry now. And if you don't catch yourself even at that time, then it goes to kamapata. That is, you have already using your intention, done an action by body, speech, or mind. And if it was skillful, that's well and good. But if it is unskillful, well, that's not helpful towards the path of enlightenment. So it's really really important. So it is with mindfulness. So slowly establishing this mindfulness, sati sampajanya, to be aware of what is happening, what am I doing, then why am I doing, and how am I doing it? What is my current experience? How am I relating to it? How am I holding it? What's the best way to respond to it? All of this is part of this sati sampajanya. So with mindfulness, the mindfulness then tells you, recollects and recalls right view into that. Then right intention comes up. Then right speech, right action springs up. So quite nice to see this connection and this activity and how we can then control it or twerk it in the right direction and condition our habits to be good rather than bad. So this is a very important, very simple, practical thing. It's not anything that you don't know, but it is important to see this, that then you also feel good if you're doing this much, that you're not being heedless. You are being heedful. You are applying the Noble Eightfold Path, or at least quite a number of steps in that Noble Eightfold Path on a day-to-day basis, moment to moment, even in every wakeful moment. And more you do, what happens? What happens is that you become more and more skillful, right? More and more wholesome. The mind is more inclined towards doing wholesome than unwholesome. And what happens then is that you don't have these kinds of regrets, remorse, and guilt coming up in your mind, because you have tried your very best and you have been as skillful as possible. And this is really very essential for the development of meditation, right? Samma sati and samma samadhi, because that is what leads you to enlightenment. So after samma samadhi, there is samma jnana and samma vimutti. So of course it is important to get to samma samadhi, and that is the jhanas, right? Based on the other 7 factors of the Noble Eightfold Path. So this is also really important to remember. So it is not samma samadhi if it is not based on the other 7 factors. So who you are and what you do and how you do things and how you cultivate your mind, every wakeful moment builds up the other 7 factors that then leads you to deep meditation. And it is through that deep meditation that you are able to get the insights, the samma jnana, that liberates you, samma vimutti. So it's kind of nice to see the framework or the big picture of how this works. And it's not something that is complicated or difficult for anybody to understand, right? This is why at the time of the Buddha, even kids as young as 7 years of age got enlightened. Very simple people who had not much education at all got enlightened, because this is not something hard to understand, nor is it hard to do these simple things. Like the first 6 factors of the Noble Eightfold Path are quite simple things. They're not complicated to understand, but could be difficult in the sense because of our habits, because of our defilements. But this is where most of the work is to be done. And when we do that, we are protecting and guarding our mind and cultivating it in the right way. Then the mind is actually ready to develop meditation. And this is also where you can see why sometimes meditation is difficult. It's not just about a technique. The technique is easy. What is so difficult about watching the breath coming in and breath going out? It's not anything complicated, right? But why is it so difficult for us to do this, right? it is difficult for most people. And that is because we haven't built up the other 7 factors in our day-to-day life. So you can see the direct relationship of what went before we sat for meditation, who we are as a person, how do we receive the world, hold the world, and respond to the world matters. It's a holistic approach, right? So it's really nice to see this path. It's a simple path, brings profound results. So this is understanding how it works, but knowing it is one thing and trying to do it is another thing. So why is it that it's going to be hard when we meet our black snakes to change the way we respond? We are really overwhelmed before we can even take any action with fear, with worry, with anger, all these things. We get overwhelmed quite quickly. That is because often our minds are pretty weak. They are quite depressed. They don't have enough pamoja, right? Gladness, goodness, enough punya sometimes, yeah, because of the heedless way that we have been dealing with our mind. Just because we can think, we just think heedlessly, and that tires our mind, and that builds up bad habit patterns. Can you relate with this when I say this? I hope you can. So this is why it becomes difficult. So if you want to be able to apply yourself, because the process seems not difficult to do, but trying to do it, the habits are very strong to break. So we have to build up our mind with energy, with goodness. So this is why the path is also shown as Dana, Sila, Bhavana. So that generosity of the heart, that kindness of the heart, the open-heartedness is very essential. So these days, the people are very self-centered, selfish, right? It's all about me and what I can have. My happiness and getting what I want to be happy. This is the general focus. And that is why you need a lot of money and you have to work so hard and you get so stressed. That's that whole pathway, right? That we are very familiar with. But the happiness, the true happiness of our minds are not in that direction. Now think about a time when you have made somebody else happy. That's the generosity of your heart, the kindness, the sacrifices that you've done, and how joyful that was, and how the mind got uplifted, how the mind got energy from doing something good, something kind, giving something or giving up. So that is how the first level of building up energy into your mind with dana. Then comes sila. How do you respond? How do you react? What kinds of words come out of your mouth? How do you speak? Are you stingy with compliments and very generous with complaints? Or are you stingy with complaints and generous with compliments? Think about it, yeah? And why? It's much more beneficial to be stingy with complaints and generous with compliments, right? Just a simple thing. We don't even think about this as sila. Often we think it's the precepts. No, who you are as a person. How do you speak? How do you behave? How do you think about things? This is part of your sila, right? The kindness, all of that. So when you have been a good person, have been able to do the right things as much as possible, again, the mind lifts up. So again, this is looking into how to bring up energy into your mind and meditation also. So they go round. So whatever little generosity you do, the mind gets energy, then you can take care of your black snakes better. When you do that, that is taking care of your sila and doing the right thing. then it builds up more energy, then you can build up more mindfulness. So it goes up and up and up. From where you are, you start. And it gathers momentum. And you get much more mindfulness, much more joy, much more peace, and less regrets and remorse in your mind, because now you are heading in the right direction. Your actions by body, speech, and mind are getting more refined, more in the right way. When that is happening, that is the starting point of meditation. I have mentioned this before. I'm sure you know this psychology of meditation very well. It comes up so many times in the suttas. If you want a sutta reference, Upanishad Sutta. Or you can look Na Chetana Karaniya Sutta, Anguttara Nikaya 10, Sutta number 3, for example. So many places it's given. So the starting point of meditation is not having any regrets and remorse. When the mind doesn't have any regrets and remorse, then gladness is the natural state. You have pamoja. Your mind is bright, uplifted, has that energy. You feel, you can see that in the eyes. You know, the eyes are shining, eyes are alert. You feel good inside. That's the kind of state that you need to start your meditation. But that gets hindered if you have regrets and remorse. So that is why it is so important what you do, how you do things throughout the day. So having spoken in a bad way, having done things unskillfully, having treated your black snakes in a bad way, will you be able to have pamoja? Not really, right? But you need to have pamoja. That is the starting point. The Buddha says, when you have gladness, you don't have to exert will. That is why it's called na chetana hambhikkhave. You don't have to exert will when you stay, because when pamoja is there, the present moment is very pleasant. When the present moment is pleasant, you're happy to be there, happy to be with the present moment. So you can be with your body, you can be with your breath, or you can be with your whatever meditation object quite easily. So that is why. So why meditation is hard is also because we don't have pamoja in our mind. So it's a very essential factor. So you can see, when we have taken care of our black snakes in the right way, when we have applied the other 7 factors of the Noble Eightfold Path in our day-to-day life, then we have taken care of that. And as a result, the gift we get is pamoja, gladness of the mind. And once we have gladness, we can just stay in the present, and then piti or rapture comes as a natural consequence, natural cause. You don't have to exert will, it just happens. And when the mind has piti, body becomes tranquil. Kaya pasaddi is the next stage. Happens automatically. It's a passive process from here. When you have kaya pasaddi, the mind also becomes tranquil and enters sukha, happiness. And sukhino chitta samadhiyati. So from that happiness, the mind enters deep meditation, jhana. And then once you have jhana, the hindrances are subsided. So that is when vipassana happens. Clear seeing is possible. When the hindrances are down, clear seeing is possible. So you can see the 5 aggregates, the 3 characteristics in there. That's another whole different topic. Altogether, this was just to show how this works, right? How we go towards that and how we head towards enlightenment, how Nibbana arise when we see all of these and enter. So anyway, so we have to be very realistic where we are and start from where you are. And it is not hard to do. It's doing these very simple things. But the Buddha says, bhavana bahulikata. That is, repeating the same simple things again and again and again. Make new good habits. Make it a habit. Change these ways of how we respond to the world. Change our unskillful responses into being skillful. That is where most of our work is to be done. When you do that, then good meditation will be almost like a gift that you receive when you have the time to go and sit in a quiet place and be with your meditation object. I hope this makes some sense to you and makes it not such an arduous, difficult, complicated path. It doesn't make you feel like you need to know so much about everything before you can even get started. You don't. When all of these things happen, when your mind has clarity, when your mind has that energy, insights are unavoidable. You will understand all of these things about the workings of the mind, all of those things. Whether you know the words for it, whether you know the sutras about it, that doesn't matter. Yeah, but you will start to see how you start to cool down. Instead of getting onto fire, bursting into flames as we receive the world, you are starting to cool down. You're not highly inflammable like a feather. Instead, you're like a really wet kind of ice cube or something. Things are there poking you, but you don't get a light. So you're cooling down. And it's such a beautiful kind of perception to incline our mind to this process of cooling down our defilements and heading towards Nibbana, Nirvana, enlightenment. So this is what I would like to share as the part of the Dhamma talk. And if you wish, we can open up for questions, or we can do the meditation and then open up for questions. Whatever you would like to do, I'm happy.
Much merit for that absolutely brilliant and beautifully presented Dhamma talk. Before we go in there, could we have a little guided meditation also? That would be very valuable.
Okay. All right. Okay. For how long?
Maybe
how long would you like to meditate?
10 minutes? Is that?
Okay.
Oh,
sure. Okay. So because it's a very short meditation, I would like you to just look at it as relaxing first, because we have to be relaxed in our body and relax in our mind. So find a comfortable way to sit. You have been sitting for almost an hour by now. So just, adjust your body and see whether there are any tightnesses anywhere. Just do what needs to be done to just make your body a little bit easeful. And if you found whatever the Dhamma that we shared inspiring, or if it uplifted your mind, if it made some sense to you, then your mind would have some gladness as a result of listening. So we can use that. We can tap into Dhamma Pamoja. So if you had some joy reflecting and recollecting some of these beautiful teachings, relating to it in a good way, inspiring way, your mind already has gladness. You can feel the uplift, the joy, right? The energy in your mind. Just become a bit familiar with what pamoja, the gladness of the mind, is like, if you have it now, because of listening to Dhamma. And you can also bring in a bit of a smile, because a smile always also uplifts your mood and helps to bring in a little bit of joy. Since it's a short meditation, these are little tricks you can do to get a bit of peace quickly. And with a glad mind and a relaxed body, you can allow yourself to really become present. You can ground yourself to the present, maybe with the touch sensations on your palms, if they're touching your legs, or your feet touching the ground. Anything that is grounding, you can use that if you wish. And instead of paying attention to your mind and thinking, you can give your attention to this touch sensation and just stay a few minutes being aware of this body, this relaxed body, and allow it to rest and relax even further. A relaxed body and a relaxed mind is delightful. See whether you notice some delight coming up as you rest and relax deeply into here and now. And as we are coming close to the end of this very short meditation, take a few moments to see how you feel. Did you notice any delight coming up in your body? Did your mind become peaceful? Did you have any gladness in your mind when you started? This is how you learn what works and what doesn't. If you wish, you can take 3 deep breaths, and at the end of the last one, you can open your eyes. So we still have about 15 minutes or so. Anybody have any questions, comments, whatever it is, you're welcome.
Thank you, Venerable Sister. That was an amazing story and so much to learn from, and the applicability based on that wonderful story, and how Sati Sampaja, that bhikkhuni in front, what clear comprehension she knew. The first thing she had to do was to calm you so that you didn't do anything wrong, any mistake. She squeezed your hand and then saw to the snake. What a correct view and the correct intention of being supportive to you, and the kindness. Amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much. And I think you brought so much of gladness to so many. Much merit to you. Let's open the floor to questions. We have on chat Samantha, who was also made a very nice comment as Bhikkhuni finished, but now she says, after suppressing the 5 hindrances, Ayya mentioned, how does one direct the mind to Vipassana meditation to gain insight, please, is her question.
Okay, it's a good question. The thing is, when you have cultivated right view, and when you already know about the Four Noble Truths and the 3 characteristics and all of those things, when the mind is really powerful, it actually, the insight comes up as a matter of course, because you can't avoid but see it, because the conditioning is already there, the brainwashing to direct is already there. But what you see is not something that we can talk about, right? It is about really seeing that when your mind is so very powerful, you very profoundly see who you are as a person or as a being. And this self, you see how this self is arising as a conditionality, how it is conditionally arisen. Nothing to be taken as me or mine, but just a phenomenon. So it's all the 5 aggregates. So just not the rupa, but then you also see Vedana, like how the feelings that sometimes we identify with, also how they are created, how they come about, and how they pass away without a self, but it's just a process. And also our perceptions, how we perceive, how these two are causally arisen and pass away without there being a self-controlling. Same with all the formations, the sankharas, right? And also you see more subtly even the vijnana. So this is what it is. But words don't really do anything. It's not really something that we need to know beforehand. It does something to you when the mind is profound. I can just relate to you with a small experience, just to give you an idea what happens. So normally we say, like, the things that actually get the insights happening, gets you enlightened, are very simple things. Just this is in, if you want, you can look up, I think, in Anguttara Nikaya, book 5, the English name of the sutta is called Themes. Maybe it's sutta number 25 or 26. The things that you reflect is, I am of the nature to get old. I haven't gone beyond old age. I am of the nature to get sick. I haven't gone beyond sickness. I am of the nature to die. I haven't gone beyond death. I am the owner of my karma, and I have to be separated from everything that I love. So this is very simple, right? We know this. But do we get Nibbana? Does our mind turn away? No. We still clung to the world, right? We crave for a body. We crave for our things. We crave for our sensual world. Yet we know, yes, we are getting old. We are getting sick. We are going to die. Yet, as a knowledge, we know this, but no Nibbana happens. Because if Nibbana happens, the mind actually gets released. So this is just to show you what happens. So what happens is, at a time, this is an experience that I'm going to relate to you from my own life, but this is not a very profound one because I can't explain profound experiences in a general Dhamma talk, but so this is a much lesser one, but still it gives a good understanding. So this was when COVID came into, at the start of COVID 2021, early, like when people were really dying and really suffering, and there was no medication, nothing in the world, so it's a very scary situation. At that time, my birthday was coming up. And usually the monastery, they do some celebration. But that day I was not in a mood to have a birthday, because how can you celebrate birth when there's so much death and suffering in the world? So I thought, maybe I should do some Karuna meditation, like meditation of compassion and spread. May all beings be free from suffering. And then I thought, how should I do it? And I'm saying very quickly because there's not much time, but I want to make a point of how the insight arises. That's why I'm relating to this story instead of telling exactly technical information that you have asked. So what I did was, I sort of felt like I was like a bird flying over the suburbs where they were affected by COVID. At that time, Australia was in a bubble. We were not affected, by Europe and USA was. So I was imagining, because I read the news, and what I saw was COVID was not, the illness wasn't the major problem, because I saw Australia has put aside $72 million just to take care of people who are becoming victims of domestic violence as a result of COVID. And Australia has put aside $168 million to take care of people who are going to suffer mental health problems as a result of COVID. Now we are facing that side of COVID as we speak. But, this is the real problem with this thing. So I saw, as I was flying like a bird in my mind's eye, how people were like, struck by fear, how they become violent, how they were angry, how mothers were even not looking after their children, or children not looking after their mother, because people were frightened of their own life. If you recall and remember that very early time, right? So it was kind of a really, really shocking, really difficult, really bad kind of situation. And at that time, I also realized young people, old people, sick people, healthy people, rich people, poor people, educated, uneducated, beautiful, ugly, everybody was affected, right? There was no excuse. Everybody was getting affected and dying. And at that moment, I was fully focused. My mind was really into understanding this, big suffering that was happening in existence. So it was really not going anywhere, very one pointed in this perception of suffering, because it's so at your face at that time, right? Because it was real. And at that time, I asked the question, this is when I should have started saying, may all beings be free from suffering, if I wanted to do Karuna meditation. But instead, my mind asked the question, why? And to that my mind gave the answer, Jatipi, because we are born. So that is when I profoundly got the point that birth is suffering, because we never think about birth as suffering, right? Old age, sickness, and death we take as suffering. But birth is suffering, because once born, all these things happen to us, right? So when that happened, because my mind was so into that, it was so real, it was so profound, at that moment, the mind just turned. Nibbida came. I don't want anything to do with this sensual world in existence, because once you are reborn, this is what happens to you. Came so profound to my mind. Probably many conducive conditions came together at the time. So the Nibbida arose at that time just based on Jatipi Dukkha. So my mind then took on this Jatipi Dukkha, Jarapi Dukkha, Maranampi Dukkha. Just those three only at that time. So as I was reciting, the mind was just so not in the normal state. So this is just to show how when the hindrances were down, so at that time, of course, there was no lust in my mind. There was no anger in my mind. There was no, irritation, agitation, sloth and torpor. None of those was there, and no doubt, because the Buddha's teachings are there. So it was completely down, because it was very one-pointed on the perception, and then on Jatipi Dukkha, Jarapi Dukkha, that kind of manasikara, that kind of idea. It sounds very strange when I explain like this, but it was a meditative state. And when that happened, that very thing that we know, birth is suffering, old age is suffering, sickness is suffering, but normally doesn't cause any nibbida to arise. But at that time, because the hindrances were down, the mind had temporary release, like temporary Cheto Vimutti. So the liberation you can experience. This you too can experience by developing these kinds of perceptions. They are called Sabbaloke Anabhirata Sanya. So different the types of perceptions that you can develop to have no desire, non-delight in the entire world. So what I was directly developing was Dukkha Sanya, based on a real thing. There was many conducive conditions during that time. That's why it was quite quick, and the mind got one-pointed, and the hindrances were down, but Nibbida arose. But same reflection. So my point was, when we think about things and project with a mind that is in an ordinary state with the hindrances, Nibbida doesn't arise. But when the 5 hindrances are gone, and you see the same thing, you see this body, the conditional nature of this body, because this we know already, right? We know dependent origination, we know causality, we know how our feelings arise based on contact, we know how our perceptions arise based on contact. As the knowledge, we know that we are conditionally arisen. All these 5 aggregates, there's nothing to be taken as me or mine. It is non-self. As a knowledge we know, but no Nibbida arise, craving doesn't dry out. But when the hindrances are down, when they are not present, it is these very simple things that we see again. But because the mind is so profound with the absence of hindrances, Nibbida happens and craving dies down. So in that occasion, even for me, craving died down temporarily, for a little bit. That's why the mind got released. But that's just a temporary liberation. But when the Nibbida is very profound and big, it's completely released. So either you get into stream entry or into arahantship as well. It's the same way that it happens. So what you direct your mind is to the 5 aggregates to understand the impermanent, non-self, and suffering nature of these 5. But no matter how much we talk about with words and knowledge and what to do, it won't make much sense. It's not profound. It sounds the same. But when the hindrances are down, the mind is so powerful, it does the job. It's the same simple thing, nothing complicated. I don't know whether this makes sense to you, but you can try it out. Anyway, that's what I would have to say. Okay. Okay.
Thank you. The samadhi was so powerful. That's what it was, isn't it? The samadhi was so powerful.
Yeah. But it's also how you get into samadhi. So in this occasion, more than insights, more than attainments, it's that disenchantment, that nibbida towards the sensual world is what? Because it's a sensual world that stops you from entering the first jhana. So once you have that disenchantment, that temporary liberation would be headed towards entering first jhana or deeper meditation like that. And from that, then the next level of insights. But the process is like that. So when the hindrances are down, nibbida happens when you see simple things, but in a more profound way. That's the difference. So hindrances being down is very important. So that's why, yeah. Anyway.
Thank you. Much merit. And it is very late now for Sister Ayya Karunika. It's 11 o'clock, or is it even later?
11:30.
So 11:30. Oh my goodness.
No problem. I'm fully awake.
I know. And you found the peace and the solace, the solitude so great at times of, early morning and night, as you told me. Just shows the value of solitude also, I thought. Any other questions, please? Quickly. Any comments? Lakshmi, do you want to comment?
There is a comment about, can we have another session on meditation at a later date?
Yeah.
From Priyanti. Yeah. Oh.
Yes. Piyaranjan Athaude. Yeah. At a later date. Yes. I hope so. So if there are no other questions, let us stop this session. It was a beautiful session. And I think those black snakes, I think we should all be waiting for the next black snake to in our lives so that we can apply this 8, which is, am I right to think that these 8, I was just thinking, is what we are doing all the time. Only thing we have to make it right. We would have a different, if that at that time of the snake, even if you had a different view and a different intention, different actions, the result would have been very different. So the whole purpose is we can only do these 8, I think. This is all that's happening.
Yeah. So not 8, because Samma Samadhi doesn't happen in the day-to-day occasion, but you can develop all the way up to 7.
Yeah. But we have to make it right.
Meditative state, but first 6 definitely. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. So it is a very everyday thing all the time.
Yeah.
Thank you. That is wonderful. Shall we share this great merit that we have all shared in, and much merit to Sister Ayya Karunika for having guided us and shared this wisdom, and to all those who made this session a success. Let us share this merit. And Bhikkhuni, could you do that? Thank you.
Akasatta cha bhummatta deva naga mahiddhika punyantang anumoditva chiran rakkantu Lokasasanang akasatta cha bummatta devanaga mahidika punyantang anumoditva chiran rakkantu desanang akasatta cha bummatta devanaga mahidika punyantang anumoditva chiran rakkantu mamparanti Ettavata cha ammehi sampadang punya sampadang sabbe deva numodantu sabba sampatti siddhya Ettavata cha ammehi sampadang punya sampadang sabbe bhuta anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya Ettavata cha ammehi sampadang punya sampadang Sabbe satta anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya idam me nyati nang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo idam me nyati nang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo idam me nyati nang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Okay.